I am here today with Pam Hines. I'm so excited. Pam has been a longtime friend of StoryStream. Pam, you're a medical doctor turned developmental editor, copy editor, book coach. You're certified in StoryGrid Fictionary, and you're a fiction writer from UCLA. You specialize in helping healthcare and STEM professionals write speculative fiction. I am so happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, Will. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
We met at Author Nation in Las Vegas. I think it was the sort of October, November last year,
Hmm.
and we really hit it off. I think we, talked there for 45 minutes an hour about all sorts of wonderful topics. One of the things that struck me about you was your background. So I guess I wanted to start there. Who is Pam? Where have you come from? And how did you end up to be a developmental and copy editor and book coach?
Yeah, it is kind of a lot, isn't it? Um,
And is there a memoir coming out?
Not that I know of, but we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that later.
So
Okay.
I guess I was thinking about that. I think I'm the daughter of a avid reader, and that's how I was made into the world of reading and literature and writing. It all started with comic books. My mother was a absolutely, you know, vicious fan of comic books. I remember Green Hornet and Spider Man. I remember the best. That's it. So writing, and I got into medicine, still reading and still writing a little bit. I love stories, and one time I decided after residency and practice, I said, let me just write a book, right? And I realized, oh, I'm really bad at this, and so I started studying writing craft. And through writing craft, I discovered really the joys of picking apart and pulling apart a story, because that's part of what attracts me to medicine and working with people is
Mm.
analysis and figuring things out for people. And so editing kind of pulled me away from writing, and now that I've retired from medicine, I'm pulling myself back into writing.
I love that because I've never thought about medicine and editing. But yeah, you're
Mm.
absolutely right. Biology is so complex, stories are so complex. Do you find it's the same kind of mental analysis that you need to
Mhm.
do for both?
Absolutely. So there was this moment, the moment that I realized I wanted to write was when I had this, what I call medicine is story moment. It's that moment when I realized that no matter how tired I was, and I've worked 41-hour days, and no matter how tired I was, the moment I walked into that room and heard the first opening lines of that person's story, right? Hey, I'm Dr. Hines. What brings you in today? They would say something, and I was like, whoa. And somewhere down the line, because I used to journal a lot, I realized, wow, what I really, really love about medicine is not only the knowledge base that's complex and interesting, but it's like listening to people's stories and making it make sense in a way that I can draw on that stuff I know and help them figure out a solution, right? Let's figure out a solution together. There's just so much about human connection that's told by story. Um, that's why we're so enthralled with them.
Oh my God, there's so much to pick up there. Do you think that all stories are about like teaching some lesson? They could be an emotional lesson about avoid this kind of person or avoid this situation. Or
Mhm.
can stories just be sort of fun and trivial and, a distraction from the worries of everyday life? Or do you think
Story.
a good stories have a truth in them that tells some deeper parable?
I think story is all of that. If you think about it, um, we need light moments. And more than that, we need light moments together. We need difficult moments to process that together, right? And so escapism serves its purpose, and it's not to escape, it's that lightness, that joy in life, that joy
Mm.
in doing things, that joy in laughing at our own foibles, right? There's just so complex. There's a concept in story grid called the double factor problem. And they are complex, difficult problems that you just can't answer with a yes or no. And it's not even the right of the person that's being asked to tell that person what to do. It's things like, you know, shall I leave my husband, right? Or shall I stay here in this job and get a raise, right? Shall I do this or that? Those are difficult questions to ask, and they're almost impossible to answer because you're not going to be answering it in a way that's helpful for that person because you're going to be asking it in terms of yourself.
Yeah, I think, we were so isolated these days. And I have a small social circle. A lot of the people I know have a really tiny social circle. And so I have wondered whether storytelling is really a replacement.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we're seeing that replacement to this day, and it's people clamoring for stories still. You
Yeah.
know.
And it's maybe clamoring for the understanding underneath stories as well, sort of point of
Mm-hmm.
view. So it's just, what would it be like if I saw the world through this person's point of view? I think that's what the empathy machine of stories is really good at.
Mm.
Um,
Also, community. I think
mm.
you're searching for some type of a community and belonging.
So the thing I want to make sure I understand, because just a hashtag struggling novelist as well. Like I'm on the journey. Um, there's really, like, part of writing is the saying of something. What do you really want to say? And is that interesting? And actually, you can go deeper there. Somebody's already said that. What's the essence? What's the lowest thing that you really want to say? So I think that's actually good. When I started out, I didn't really know. I knew that I wanted to kind of do something like this, but I hadn't worked out what I really wanted to say. When you're doing your book coaching, like, what does that look? Are you in one-on-one conversations here? Like, no, tell me more about that.
In book coaching it's almost like standing side by side with the writer as they're ideating a story to get to an outline, or as they're working that outline to a draft, or as they're evaluating the draft and figuring out what they need to do next with it, or as they're doing a revision. It's like every little step of the way, or any little step of the way,
Yeah.
you can hire a book coach to come in with you. You don't need to do that. You can go all the way to the end and maybe even do your own copy editing and proofreading and even formatting of the book. But again, you will always have that burden of knowledge. And there will be a reader somewhere that'll say, you spelled the wrong on chapter 23. Whenever I'm doing a copy edit and my writer says, oh, my beta readers just sent me a thing and they said, I misspelled such and such right here. And I love those beta readers. I love it because it's a chance I caught it already and it's a chance I didn't.
We have a lot of people who are beginning the writing process, and they know that they've wanted to be a writer. Maybe they've drafted a couple of chapters, and they come to StoryStream with usually their first draft, maybe their second draft of a book, and it's very exciting. And we've had some people come and say, "Wow, this is super helpful," but it's a lot of negative feedback.
Mm.
I think as an editor, you're a little bit of a therapist, right? What are some of your tips for writers on when to know when to engage an editor, like what that process, what they should bring, what an editor's process, like how that process works, and what they should actually realistically be looking to get out of a relationship with an editor?
Well, part of it depends on what they want, where they want to go with this book, right? You want to tell the story that you want to tell, and you want to tell it as truthfully and as, how can I say this, is as much as possible aligned with what you intended to tell. So if your goal is to tell the story and have it printed out and give it to your family members as a memento, and if you feel that you've read it and that is adequately, telling the story you wish to tell, that's fine. If you are going to publish this, self-publish, that's a whole different thing than if you're going to try to engage an agent and go for traditional publishing. And so one of the things that happens is when you get to the point where you're ready to submit to an agent, you want to make that as polished a manuscript as possible. But recognize that that agent's going to have suggestions and changes. I've done some manuscript evaluations and developmental editors, and I've had writers come back to me to do a proofread or something, and I'm like, well, are you traditionally publishing or are you independently publishing? If you're traditionally publishing, I would say don't spend your money on a proofread right now before you've submitted to agents and publishers, because they will make changes to things. So I think that where you want to go with it is a point. When you're independently publishing, you're going to have to put more effort and money into your edits and into probably your beta readers and maybe a professional editor, because at some point you can't see what you can't see, right? You can't see what's not there. And there's this invisible line where you feel it's as good as you can get it. I don't think you need to go any further than that. I was just talking about this with some editing friends. How do you know what you need? It's like, well, I think the answer is trust somebody to read your story and to see how much of what you're trying to put across they get, right? And so a good beta reader, a good manuscript evaluation from a professional editor can tell you that. Those are the things that are important, because if they're losing attention, they're getting bored, then maybe you did too much exposition, or maybe you repeated things several times. So there's a whole lot of complexity that goes into, well, who is that reader? Well, who was my target audience? Who was I writing this for?
Mm.
There's a lot of complexity there, but I, if I think about what matters with a story is that each chapter and scene has a purpose, and it has a purpose that drives towards telling this experience, telling this story, such that you're answering somebody's question, that double factor question, that complex question that you just can't say yes or no. I don't know, but let me tell you this story. That each chapter has to speak to that in
Hmm.
some kind of way. And if it's not speaking to that, then the question is, what is this here for? Case in point, you pick up a book, right? You look at the cover and there's a promise in the cover. I'm like, oh, this is a romance story. And they even tell you romance, right? Book 5. Um, and you open it up and there's a slasher murder in it. This isn't what I signed
Yeah,
up for. This
yeah.
isn't, no. So
Well, that's
there's a
almost the
reader
genre
expectation.
promise, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I
Do
mean,
you
what
think we
is
can get in
genre?
trouble with genre promises? Because I do wonder, like, one of the founding ideas with StoryStream was that you can build software, especially now that we have really good software, that accentuates people's personal voice. And there is this tension, though, because there is my personal voice. There is a whole bunch of things that we know about writing, like, I mean, show don't tell is a canonical one, but, just little things. So, how do you think about having an original voice and really saying something meaningful and original about these difficult questions, but doing it in a model where there are all these expectations? Is having an original voice even possible with all of our genre expectations? Like,
Hmm.
tell me your thoughts about that.
Yeah, that's a challenge. I'm thinking like this. A nose is a nose and eyes are eyes and a face is a face, but there are so many variations. And you know, if you were to try to draw me and then you would try to draw a picture of my sister, you would see the similarities, you'd see the differences, and the differences are very large, even though they're very small. So, I mean, that's kind of life in humanity, right? We want to be seen, but we want to kind of be left alone, right? We want to belong, but we kind of want our independence. You know, you know,
I like that.
my feelings as a coach, as a writer, as a doctor, as a human, and as an editor is go for it. Put it on the page, go for it. And then you can sharpen the pencil, then you can focus the beam of light, etc. But go for it, because I think in that go for it, there is your voice, there is your identity. As a reader, you're going to trust that this person was really committed to telling this story.
And I
It's a
think it goes to
challenge.
that trust. Like, I absolutely can hear when people are going through the motions and when people are going for it. And I would
Mm-hmm.
much rather read somebody who's going for it, but it's a little bit clunky rather than somebody polished, just kind of going through the motions. I think you can feel that going for it. So even though it may feel odd for writers to try on this strange voice or play around with things, I totally agree that people should really just push past their discomfort and try something big.
Because that thing that brought you there is the thing that's going to get you there.
Whew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I know that's big, huh?
I wanted to end with a look at where we are in 2026. It is a crazy time politically, with climate change, with wars, with, technology and all sorts of things. One of the things that's happening to the writing industry, like all of the industries, it's being affected by this technology, AI, and all the fact that you can go onto a website and get a novel generated for you. The fact that, Amazon
Yeah.
had to put a rule in place that you can only submit 3 books a day. I don't know. As an editor who clearly loves human storytelling, original voices, how do you think about AI? Is it a useful tool? Should it be banned at all costs? Like, are you somewhere in the middle? Give me your high level view about AI.
My view on AI is like, I'm not smart enough to tell how you wrote that book. I have no idea. I spent a lot of time trying to just figure out what that thing was, right? You know, because my goal is I'm hired by a writer to polish this story and to help them achieve the goal of saying what they want to say. I am not the police of how you got it on the page, and I just can't, I'm just not smart enough. So what I did was I felt as a lover of words and as a editor and coach and as a person that respects my colleagues and what they're trying to do, my editing colleagues as well as my writing colleagues, I needed to learn as much as possible as I could about these AI tools. And I can't say that I'm there, but what I want to have is the same familiarity and language about it, about whether you used OpenAI or Anthropic or Gemini. I want to have the same conversation as I have with them about joining two independent clauses. And I'm not going to use a semicolon, a period, a coordinating conjunction with a comma, or violate the rules and use a comma splice because darn it, it's fiction and that's the vibe and the pace you were going for. And so, and so, you know, can I tell if you wrote it with AI? No, I can't. I can tell if the story's a crummy story, but I can't tell how you got to crummy. I can tell if it's not logical. I can't tell you how you got to logical, and I can't tell you how you got to illogical. So for me, I'm happy with using whatever tools you brought to the thing and to the manuscript, and using whatever tools I need to bring to the editing. But what's relevant for me as a writer is that if I have both of those up and they're both on the on active mode looking at the story as I'm writing, it's absolutely frustrating if, you know, Grammarly says, put a comma here, and ProWriting A says, no, take that comma out, right? Put that comma, no, take that comma out. And it's a style choice. And so, as a writer and as an editor, we have to pick a style and we want to stick to it. You know, no program can answer that for you. You have to make a choice. I just don't think the technology's there to do a good solid, humanless AI copy edit.
Hmm.
I think that writers and editors need to know what they know, and they need to know what they don't know. And you just kind of need to get feedback back and forth. And maybe in 2 years, when the whole thing is everything's automated, then I'll be singing a different tune. But right now, my goal is to learn as much about it so that I can speak the common language with whatever my client may be coming up with.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like that. There's a lot to unpack there. One of the conversations we've had, I think, with StoryStream, and especially with our wonderful, I will say, super user Bernadette, who's written. I love Bernadette. She's written what 13 novels in this series, and
Amazing.
it's just amazing. I think there's, when you come to editing, there's things like copy, style, and grammar, and the spelling of different words. But I think before that, the thing that StoryStream is trying to do is that thing that you mentioned before. It's like, is this what you really want to say? Let's try
Right.
and go deeper there. Is your theme really well articulated? Are your characters
Mm-hmm.
as fleshed out as they can be? And it's a big ask for some software program to do that because it's a very human thing. Do you think that AI will get to a point where it will kind of understand stories in the way that human beings understand stories? Do you think the machines will get good enough to actually understand that your character's two-dimensional?
So, will they get good enough to determine if your character's two dimensional? I think yeah, because I think that's definable. But then your other question probably said something like, will they tell if the story's working or, whatever. I don't think so, because what I was thinking of as you said, as you asked that is, I don't know the future, and could I even tell you, could I even use it again right now? It would
Right,
take me a while to
right.
learn it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know. It'll be kind of interesting to see where it goes, but I still think stories still hinge on trust and, like you said, empathy. It's like somebody needs that story. Somebody needs you to listen to them. And to me, I always go back to medicine as story. What brought me to story was that somebody needed me to listen to them, and I sat down in the chair and I was transported.
I love that. That is a perfect place to end. Pam Hines,
Hmm.
could you tell people where people can find more of your work and connect with you?
Oh my gosh. So my website is pdhines.com. I have a PD Hines on LinkedIn. I have PD Hines editing on Instagram. That's mostly me.
And you're available for book coaching, developmental editing, copy
Right.
and line editing.
I coach for the Story Grids Writer Mentorship Program, and I do fictionary edits.
Pam, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a wonderful conversation. I would love to do a fireside chat whenever we're in the same
Hmm.
city together.
This is what happened at Author Nation. We got to talking, and we just didn't
We
stop.
just didn't stop. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like we just scratched the surface on like an ocean level of stuff. So thank you very much for being on the program today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Will.